Today, we're going to build a ninja for Pathfinder 2e. Welcome to D4. Hi everybody. D4 is the show where each week we take a deep dive into one, sometimes two, specific character builds for TTRPGs. Sometimes D&D, apparently now sometimes Pathfinder. We crunch numbers about them, we theorycraft about them, not with the intent to tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build and play a character with the hopes of creating something that is both really fun but also really powerful. So if you enjoy creating characters for your role-playing games almost as much as you enjoy playing the actual game itself, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here, so thanks for being here. My name's Colby. Really quick. If you would be interested in getting a written step-by-step guide so that you can recreate this character yourself without having to go back and watch the video again or take notes, or if you're just looking for another way to support the channel, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider joining as a member. There's a little button down there somewhere. For just $2 a month, you get access to the library of write-ups, the cheat sheets that I create for every single one of my character builds. So huge shout out to my channel members. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. And if that doesn't really interest you, or you feel you're just unable to do that at the moment financially, that's okay. I appreciate you being here anyway, and just liking and subscribing and commenting are also great ways to support the channel. So thanks for just being here. Okay. So, following up on how crazy successful my Learning Pathfinder as a D&D veteran series was, and by the way, if you're new to Pathfinder and you have not watched those videos, I do highly encourage you to do so. There's a link there, as I am going to be largely assuming here today that you have at least a basic understanding on how most of the rules for Pathfinder 2e work. And based on the overwhelming feedback from comments on those videos, apparently a lot of you want to see more Pathfinder content. So today is the day that I attempt my first ever Pathfinder 2e character build video. And before we even get started, I feel like I need to make some caveats that may seem obvious, but I feel like are worth mentioning regardless. The truth is, attempting to do this for Pathfinder kind of makes me feel like a kid who just walked into like the world's biggest toy store and all of the toys are free. I'm so excited, and I'm so scared. Maybe not scared, but definitely overwhelmed. Like, I want to do everything and know everything, but I just can't, and I don't. So, where do I begin? With my very favorite toy, of course. I'll just go over here and pick up my little Snake Eyes G.I. Joe guy, right? And just play with them for a while, because that feels familiar and safe. And then maybe once I get comfortable, I'll move on to all of the other awesome and amazing toys that are in this store. Because, yeah, learning how to play Pathfinder is one thing, but attempting to plot out an actual character build in a way that I can claim is at least somewhat optimized, that's another task entirely, as it involves becoming familiar with all of the options available and picking out what I think might be the best ones, or at least really good ones that will best help me fulfill the character concept that I'm trying to build for, if not for actual mechanical power, right? Speaking of mechanical power, though, fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, as some of you may think, that's the thing about Pathfinder, right? You hear this a lot when people talk about the game. Bounded accuracy, difficulty to min-max. Power increases horizontally, not vertically. I mean, what does all of that mean? My experience and understanding thus far is this. The majority of the power increases that a character receives in Pathfinder is due to their level above all, and not necessarily the choices that they make about feats, spells, weapons, etc., etc. Or perhaps more accurately, the majority of the increase a character experiences in damage output and survivability are much more affected by their level than by those other choices. Because of the fact that your proficiency bonus is tied to your level, and that proficiency affects pretty much everything you do. Every time you level up, you gain a plus to hit with your weapons and your spells. Your AC increases. your spell save DC increases. And conversely, there seem to be fewer feats and abilities to choose from that give you a lot to increase the damage that you do, or your survivability, etc. There are some things, sure, and we will do our best to find and take advantage of those, but the variance between a character who does their best to optimize for damage versus a character who doesn't is a lot smaller than in D&D 5e, for example. And again, some of you will love that, and some of you will be a little turned off by it. If nothing else, I think this mechanic in Pathfinder absolutely frees up any character build to make choices for flavor, character concept, and fun. And it feels like there are a lot fewer choices that seem to be like must-haves if you want your character to be powerful. It feels like they will at very least be viable and competitive, almost no matter how you build them. Since, again, the game balance is tied so closely to character level above all. And when you couple that with the sheer gargantuan number of choices available to every character at every level, it definitely feels like an almost limitless playground to create characters within. Again, both exciting and a little daunting, at least if you're new. So, as I start dipping my toes into the waters of character creation in Pathfinder 2, I would humbly ask for your patience and understanding. I'm going to tell you how I would build a character in the name of creating something that's both fun and powerful, but a lot more of the choices that we make for Pathfinder builds are going to be for concept and flavor than the choices that I tend to make for my D&D 5e builds. Also, there are going to be rules that I'm gonna get wrong, choices I make that are maybe less optimal. So thank you for coming on this journey of learning with me, and also thank you for your gentle corrections for the Pathfinder veterans out there when I make a mistake or a bad decision. I've still got my training wheels on here. Take them baby steps. Oh man, we're not even done with the preamble yet. All those new subscribers I picked up with the Pathfinder videos last week are going to be like, is he not done talking yet? When are we going to get to the build? So yeah, as I mentioned, when you're in an unfamiliar place, you tend to cling to whatever you can find that feels at least somewhat familiar, right? And for me, when it comes to RPGs, that means monks. Yes, monks are my RPG whoobies. My tabletop blankies. My favorite class. When I started playing my first ever Pathfinder campaign a few weeks ago with the rules lawyer and friends, check those videos out there, I built a monk character, and the build that I'm going to do today is essentially what I built for that game, with one major tweak that I'll make as a result of some things that I learned playing that character and that I actually later respect to do. And guess what? In case you didn't know, in Pathfinder, monks don't suck. Boy, did they not suck. They bring all of the coolness and flavor and pizzazz of the D&D monk. In fact, I'd argue that they maybe even bring more of that, but with mechanics that are really, really strong. But if there's one thing that I love even more than a kung fu master, it's a stealthy, silent but deadly kung fu master. Someone who can stalk in the shadows, climb up buildings, leap between rooftops, and then take their enemy down with speed and stealth and grace, all with their bare hands. So that is the concept that I'm going to be trying to build for today. A sustained damage-focused monk with a penchant for stealth and sneakiness. And so I'm happy to present episode 128, The Ninja. Check out this fantastic artwork created by my good friend Randall Hampton. I send him character concepts every week and he comes up with this fantastic art for them. If you're interested in following Randall on social media or potentially trying to reach out to him to see if you can commission him to create some art for your character or even your party, I will put links in the video description on how to do so, as always. Thanks, Randall. Also, before we get into the build, I'm super excited to tell you guys about World Anvil, the sponsor for the video this week, a new sponsor for me, and a company that I happen to already use and am a big fan of. For those who don't know about World Anvil, they are basically the greatest software out there for GMs to build their homebrew worlds in, and for players to interact seamlessly with those worlds. For you world builders, you game masters, World Anvil supports over 45 systems, including D&D and Pathfinder, as well as many, many more. It will even facilitate you creating your own system to work with their software. They make it incredibly easy to create wiki-style presentations of your world and your writing so that you can keep track of everything you build. They also have an amazing interactive map builder that you can customize to your heart's content, and even chronicles that will combine timelines with those maps so you can plot and keep track of what happened where and when in your world, whether before your campaign started or while it's going on. Presenting information to your players about your world and your campaign has never been easier. And yeah, speaking of players, World Anvil is for you too. They not only make it easier than ever to access everything that your GM wants you to know about their world and campaign, but you can even build your character right from within World Anvil's site. They have character sheets for just about every single game system out there. Not only can you keep track of your hit points and your spell slots and your inventory from right within World Anvil, but it also has a fantastic system for backstory creation, journal entries, and note-taking for each session. It's better than anything else I've ever seen. Yeah, World Anvil does it all. So please do yourself a favor and go check them out. You won't regret it. Sign up for a free account, if nothing else, to see what you might be missing. When you do, I'd appreciate it if you would use this URL here. That's how they'll know that I sent you. I will, of course, put that link in the video description. And check this out. If you decide to purchase a yearly subscription, regardless of the level you purchase at, if you use the code D4 at checkout, you will save a whopping 40%. Yes, 40. That's incredibly generous. Surely they've got to be losing money on this deal. Huge thanks to World Anvil. You guys are awesome. Really quick, before we get started with the character build, I just have a couple of housekeeping items. Sorry. First of all, I'm planning on taking next week off. I have been drinking from a Pathfinder fire hose lately, trying to learn and create Pathfinder content, and my sleep and family have suffered a little bit as a result. So no video next week, and then the week after that, yes, I will plan on going back to a D&D video. As I mentioned last week, my current plan is to kind of alternate between D&D and Pathfinder builds until one really seems to kind of consistently be outperforming the other, I suppose, and then maybe I'll tweak how often I do one or the other. And I hope that most of you will watch most of that content, but for sure, let me know in the comments if you feel strongly about one kind of content over the other. And finally, something I have to mention up front here. Longtime viewers of my channel will know that I always take my character builds to level 17. It's kind of the final big power spike for characters in D&D 5e. I am not prepared to go that high in Pathfinder yet. What's more, there are so many things that I'm both learning and also feeling obligated to explain to you, since most of my audience is coming to Pathfinder from D&D. And so I just don't physically have enough time in my life to do an in-depth character build the way I like to do them and take it all the way to level 17 or maybe even 20 yet. I hope to get there one day. Once I and maybe most of you are more comfortable with the mechanics and the choices, and maybe when that day comes, I'll go back to these earlier builds and update them to take them to higher level. But for now, I'm only going to be taking this one at least to level 6. And I know that's really kind of just getting started, but it's going to give you a really nice runway to help get this character off the ground. And hopefully if you choose to play them, by the time you get them to level 7, you'll kind of already know where to take it from there anyway. We're going to get the concept and the mechanics super solid early on, and find some really fun and powerful and potent synergies, and then let you just kind of run with it into the mid and late game for now. All right. Whew. Level 1. For our starting class, or I guess I should just say for our class, because there's no changing it in Pathfinder, we're going monk, as I've said. And I imagine this character as being one whose monastic training probably took place in a monastery that values a little more subtle approach to the martial and even spiritual disciplines. And by subtle, I mean stealthy. Now, this doesn't have to be sinister, right? You might not belong to a monastery who hires out their trainees as assassins, but you might. Or you might just come from a tradition that takes the "we become the shadow so that we can defeat the shadow" stance, right? Anyway, since most of us are new here, let's go over everything you get when you choose monk for your class. First off, you get to choose what your primary ability score will be between strength and dexterity. This matters because some monk abilities are based on your class DC, and that class DC will be improved by the ability score you pick for your primary ability. I'm going to pick strength, since strength will give us better damage, and as my longtime viewers are probably sick of hearing me say, when I do these builds, I try to explore the limits of what's possible for whatever we're building for, whether sustained damage per round, DPR, or burst damage, or survivability, etc., etc. Choosing strength as our primary ability score means we get a +2 to strength here, raising it to 12. Also, as a monk, our proficiency is trained in perception, the lowest proficiency we can have, which gives us a +2 bonus, but we have expert proficiency in all 3 of our saving throws, will, fortitude, and reflex, meaning a +4, and that's fantastic. We are also trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks, untrained in all armor, but expert trained in unarmored defense, meaning again, we get a +4 to our AC when wearing no armor, in addition to our dexterity modifier. Not bad at all. We then get trained proficiency in 4 skills of our choice. And for this build, I think I would take athletics, stealth, intimidation, and medicine personally. Medicine just kind of seems like the skill that every single character in Pathfinder 2e should have at least trained proficiency in. Maybe I'm wrong, but treat wounds is just so good and pretty essential for helping you heal up between combat encounters. As for background, I never talk about background in my D&D builds, but that's because outside of some overpowered options that are setting specific and that most tables don't use, backgrounds don't really have much mechanical advantage to speak of. In Pathfinder, of course, that's not the case, because your background gives you ability score increases, among other things. Thus, for my background, I'm going to take Martial Disciple Acrobatics. I don't feel like you have to go this route by any means. What's most important is that we take something that bumps our strength, but I like it best for my vision of this character as a nimble and acrobatic ninja. As a result, we get to bump our strength again, making it a 14, and then take one other ability score increase of our choice, for which I would take dexterity, bumping it to a 12. We also get trained proficiency in the acrobatics skill and learn the cat fall skill feat, which lets us treat any falls as being 10 feet shorter. As a reminder, in Pathfinder, if you simply fall more than 5 feet, you take bludgeoning damage equal to half the distance you fell, and if you take any damage, you land prone. That's fairly punishing, actually, so reducing it even by 5 feet can absolutely help and let us jump off of at least a 1-story building without worrying too much. And also, the feat scales to 25 and 50 feet when you increase training to expert and then master in acrobatics, respectively. So that's a big incentive to get that proficiency level up, right? Best of all, if you get acrobatics training to legendary, you never take damage from falling with the cat skill feat, no matter how far you fall. Come on, that is so cool. And totally ninja-like. Finally, as far as ability score increases go, we get 4 free ones to just assign wherever we want. I'm gonna do strength, raising it to a 16, dexterity, raising it to 14, and then constitution, raising it to 12, and wisdom, raising it to 12. As for our ancestry, not race, we're going to take, yeah, you're all gonna laugh at me, human, and just wait, it gets worse. Now, for the 2 ability bonuses we get from ancestry, we're going to again bump our strength and dexterity, raising them to 18 and 16. And those then would be like our final ability scores for this character, with a 10 in intelligence and charisma. You may prefer to replace one of those dexterity bumps with a constitution bump, giving you a 14 in each. I really want to think of this character as lithe and agile and quick, even though strength is our most important ability score. But as for our human heritage, not subrace, we're going not variant human. That would be absurd. We're going versatile human. I'm so ashamed. To be fair, this isn't quite as obvious a choice, I think, mechanically, as going variant human and or custom lineage is in D&D 5e. Versatile human means you get a free general feat. Now, general feats are good. in Pathfinder, but none of them feel particularly game-breaking or overpowered to me. Maybe especially for a character like this who won't be using any armor or weapons or shields. You could totally instead go with skilled heritage or even half-elf or half-orc for your heritage if you wanted, or some other ancestry beyond human, of course. Now, as for the free general feat that we get as a versatile human, I think I would probably take toughness. It's not going to do much for our sustained damage, unless you consider that a dead ninja does 0 damage. Because yeah, toughness just flat out increases our hit points by 1 per level, and decreases the DC of your recovery checks, known as death saving throws in D&D, right? So yeah, very solid survivability feat. Now at level 1, we also gain an ancestry feat, and the main draw for going human for your ancestry, I think, regardless of your heritage, is for the ancestry feat that humans get, including half-elves and half-orcs, known as natural ambition. I have a feeling you're going to be seeing a lot of builds from me on this channel that take this ancestry and feat. And that's going to make some of you laugh, and it's probably going to make some of you annoyed. Sorry. Pick something else if you want. The thing is, it seems to me like class feats are generally stronger and more important than ancestry feats. I'm sure there are exceptions to that, but natural ambition just lets you pick an additional level 1 class feat. And I just think that I would rather have that, at least mechanically, than pretty much anything else I could get from either human or any other ancestry, at least at level 1. So, which monk class feat should we take with that free feat that we get? I think I would go with Wolf Stance. Monks get these really cool stances. It's sort of a defining characteristic of the class. Once you activate them, you get some really nice bonuses to your attacks and often other bonuses as well. When I first built this character for Rules Lawyer's game, I went with Dragon Stance, but I later respect once I realized that Wolf Stance was better for what I wanted to do with my character. To use it, you have to be unarmored, no problem. It requires an action to get into your stance. Of course it does. This is Pathfinder, everything takes an action. And thereafter, until you get knocked out or the encounter ends or your stance changes, you can make Wolfjaw unarmed attacks. This means your unarmed attacks do a 1d8 of piercing damage instead of the normal 1d4 of bludgeoning for everybody else, and they have the agile, finesse, and backstabber traits, among others. Now remember, agile means our subsequent attacks this turn would only suffer a -4 and a -8 to hit penalty, as opposed to the usual -5 and -10 that you get for making multiple attacks on your turn. Finesse means we could use our dexterity modifier to hit if we wanted. We don't. And backstabber means the attack does an extra 1 precision damage per hit if the enemy is flat-footed. And since when you flank an enemy, they are flat-footed, just FYI, when I crunch numbers later, I'm pretty much always just going to assume that the enemy is flat-footed, even if that's not necessarily always going to be the case. Another thing I always say, I assume best case scenarios when I crunch numbers, again, in the interest of exploring like the limits of what's possible. Okay, so 1d8 plus 1 damage is pretty dang nice for an unarmed attack, especially one that's agile, so our multiple attack penalty is reduced. We'll definitely be taking advantage of that. One last thing about Wolf Stance. If we're flanking our enemy when we make our Wolfjaw attacks, those attacks also gain the trip trait. Now, since our hands are free, and you usually need a free hand to take the trip action, which, remember, is considered an attack action and so would suffer from our multiple attack penalty if we decided to try and trip our enemy. But yeah, having an unarmed attack with the trip trait may feel a little redundant. The reason it's important to note is this. If you have an item bonus on your weapon, then a weapon with the trip trait adds that bonus to the attempt to trip. You make an athletics check against the target's reflex DC, but if you had a +1 weapon with the trip trait, you would get to add that +1 to your trip check, right? Now, you may not be using weapons like we think of here as a monk, but there's a really good chance that you may end up with, say, +1 hand wraps of mighty blows. That would then give you a +1 to a trip attack if you were flanking and in wolf stance. Make sense? Moving on then, as a monk at level 1, we get a couple of really cool features. First up, Flurry of Blows. that sounds familiar. This tells us that as a single action, we can make 2 unarmed strikes. Yes, you have to apply your multi-attack penalty as normal for them. So if you did Flurry of Blows first on your turn, you would take 1 action to make 2 attacks, but your first would be made at no penalty and your second would be made at a -4, assuming that you're using Wolf Stance. This is still really great for action economy, freeing us up to move more or intimidate or, well, make even more attacks, I guess, if we wanted. Now, if both of these Flurry of Blows attacks hit the same creature, then you combine their damage for the purpose of resistance, which is nice, since resistance, remember, in Pathfinder has a flat number tied to it. And if they were resistant to your damage, they would typically reduce the damage you do by that flat number that's tied to their resistance on both of those attacks, right? But in this case, with Flurry of Blows, they only apply their resistance 1 time for both attacks. Of course, that means it's worse if they have weakness to the damage that we're doing, since that means we'd only take advantage of that weakness once, right? Anyway, it's also important to remember that Flurry of Blows has the Flourish trait, and we can only do 1 action with the Flourish trait per turn. Now, I'm not planning on picking up any other flourishes on this build, so it's not an issue, but it could be if you decided to build your character in a way that potentially gave you other flourish options. We also, as a Monk 1, get the powerful Fist feature, which makes our unarmed strikes a d6 instead of a d4. Of course, if we're in Wolf Stance, ours are a d8. It also reduces penalties most characters suffer if trying to make lethal attacks with our unarmed strikes. Our body is the only weapon we need, and it is deadly. At level 1, we get the Monk class feat that we'd normally get, in addition to the free one we got, right? And I think I would take Key Strike. It's not actually going to do much for our sustained DPR, but it does give us a nice burst damage option. With the Key Strike feat, we learn the aptly named Key Strike spell. It's a focus spell, so we're granted 1 focus point to spend on it, which, as a reminder, we can recover by essentially taking a short rest, refocusing, and meditating for 10 minutes. When we use this spell, we get to make either an unarmed strike or, way better, Flurry of Blows, and gain a +1 status bonus to hit with the attack or attacks, plus an extra 1d6 of force, negative, positive, or lawful damage to the attack or attacks. Lawful only if we are of lawful alignment. Also, what does lawful damage look like in-game? Just reading somebody their Miranda rights? You're under arrest. Also, because this is a focus spell, remember, it scales. Though this one scales pretty slowly. It's only every 4 spell levels. That's what the little heightened +4 means at the bottom of the spell description. So once your focus spells were 5th level, that's at character level 9, right? Then Key Strike would bump up to 2d6 extra damage per attack, and at spell level 9, or character level 17, it would bump to 3d6. Finally, we need to decide what to take for our starting equipment. In Pathfinder, everyone just starts out with 15 gold to buy whatever common items they want. Fortunately, we're a monk, so we don't need much. I would be sure to grab some thieves' tools, some healer's tools, so that we can potentially treat wounds, among other things, an adventurer's pack, and whatever else you think you might need. Some shuriken for ranged attacks, obviously, maybe a climbing kit, grappling hook, crowbar, etc. At level 2, we would be a monk too, and will always be a monk every single level. So I don't even need to clarify that on my Pathfinder videos. I don't know what to do with myself. This means that we get a skill feat, and here is where a son of D&D has a chance to show their true quality when it comes to Pathfinder, or perhaps a lack thereof. You get a skill feat every 2 levels, and honestly, there are so many cool and fun ones, and also, generally speaking, very few that would seem to actually directly impact our DPR. This is some of that horizontal rather than vertical power increase that I talked about earlier, right? More breadth of options that don't necessarily make you hit harder, except maybe sometimes indirectly. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Many of you probably consider that a very good thing. I might be inclined to agree, but I'm really still getting comfortable with the idea of skill feats and learning about the 100 or so of them that exist just in the core rulebook. That's a lot of skill feats. I am 100% certain that there are lots of great and powerful things that I don't yet know about or am underestimating. If you have some great suggestions, please let me know in the comments. I know that there are a lot of ways to drastically improve the healing that we can do from treat wounds, and I'm sure that going that route is really smart. I know that improving intimidation can be really strong. The demoralize action feels really awesome. I think for me, on this character, the skill feats that I would take would probably tend to be things that make me feel, well, more like a ninja. So primarily acrobatics and athletics and stealth skill feats. Quick squeeze, steady balance, combat climber, powerful leap, terrain stalker, quiet allies. But all of that said, one skill feat that I do feel fairly confident about taking is the assurance general skill feat, and using it here at least for athletics. Assurance is one of my very favorite skill feats in the game so far, and it works quite simply. You pick a skill that you're trained in, and going forward, you can, if you choose, forego rolling a skill check for that skill to instead just get a 10 plus your proficiency bonus. That's kind of amazing, actually. It's sort of like a light version of the D&D 5e Rogues reliable talent feature, right? Now, it only works on one skill, though you can take it multiple times for different skills. And you have to choose to either roll or take a 10, sure. But still, it's a nice way to just ensure success on lower athletics DCs. Now, keep in mind that you don't get to add your ability score modifier here. That's not part of your proficiency bonus, but you do get to add your level of proficiency plus your character level. So in our case, we're trained in athletics, that's a +2, and our character level is 2, so that's a total of +4, meaning that if the DC on an athletics check is 14 or lower, we will just automatically succeed at it every time. And that will increase every time we level up. Part of me, for this reason, is really tempted to just take assurance with every single skill that I'm trained in. Because as much as I love rolling dice, I love just knowing that a thing will work and totally removing chance out of the equation even more. So yeah, this is going to mean that, among other things, our trips are going to be a lot easier to pull off, assuming that the enemy has a relatively low reflex DC, right? And eventually, as we continue leveling up, even against a moderate enemy reflex DC, we're going to automatically be succeeding. And that feels cool. We also, at level 2, get yet another monk class feat here. That's 3 class feats already at level 2. So awesome. And we're going to take what feels to me like a no-brainer. Stunning Fist. That's right, we get to stun people with our fists right at level 2. And it's sort of both better and also worse than D&D's Stunning Strike, I think. Here's how it works. You flurry of blows and make both attacks on the same target. If either of them hit and do damage, then you can attempt to stun your target. No key points needed, no focus points spent. They make a fortitude save against your class DC. Again, that would be 10 plus our level plus trained proficiency plus, for us, our strength modifier. So right now we're sitting at a very nice 18 class DC. If they fail, they get the stunned 1 condition, or stunned 3 if they critically fail. Remember, lots of statuses have values associated with them that affect the severity. Now, stunned is, I think, a little less potent in Pathfinder than in D&D, but it's still really good. If you are stunned, each time you would regain your actions at the start of your turn, you reduce the number of actions you regain by your stunned value. So if you make an enemy stunned 1, then on their next turn, they're only going to get 2 actions instead of the usual 3. And then the stunned condition ends. Of course, if they crit fail and become stunned 3, then they lose all 3 of their actions on their turn. And the fact that you can just do this over and over and over again on your turn without spending any resources to just constantly debuff the enemy is pretty awesome. Alright, we are also here going to take an archetype feat, so I need to pause for a brief moment to discuss archetypes. According to the core rulebook, when you gain a class feat at every even numbered level, you can instead, potentially, take an archetype feat. If you need a refresher, archetype feats are basically Pathfinder's version of multiclassing. You can't take levels in another class, but you can potentially take some abilities and or feats from another class by sacrificing a class feat of your own, right? Well, in case you didn't know, there is a variant rule in the Game Mastery Guidebook known as the Free Archetype Rule. To summarize it, this potential rule allows characters to take an archetype feat in addition to their class feat when they gain one starting at level 2, and not instead of. There are suggested restrictions that a GM might want to place on using this optional rule, making the archetype one that is fitting for the campaign setting, for example. But based on polls that I've conducted and a lot of additional reading I've been doing all over the tubes and amongst Ronald and the other guys that I've been playing Pathfinder with, who deserve a huge shout out, by the way, for all of their help and for being a veritable well of knowledge and wisdom as I've been learning the ropes to this game. But based on all of that, it seems that the vast majority of Pathfinder 2e tables play with the free archetype rule, maybe as high as 80%. A lot of people commented on my polls to say that most Pathfinder players view the free archetype rule like D&D 5e players view the feats rule. It's technically an optional rule. I bet a lot of you 5e players didn't know that feats were just optional. It's not just a guarantee that you're going to be able to get them at your table. But pretty much everyone in D&D allows feats, right? The main reason that most people tend to allow the free archetype rule, so far as I can tell, is because it adds a lot of diversity and variety to your character without adding a ton of just flat power. Again, tending to bring more horizontal growth by giving you a lot more options as to what your character can do rather than just flat out making you hit harder for the most part. The GMG even says this: free archetype characters are a bit more versatile and powerful than normal, but usually not so much that they unbalance your game. For all of these reasons, I think that when I create character builds for Pathfinder 2, I'm going to just assume that you're playing with the free archetype rule at your table. If this upsets you, or you don't play with this rule at your table, I apologize. I don't think that it will unbalance the builds all that much, and hope that it wouldn't alter the build monumentally, but I could be wrong on both accounts. I really don't think, however, that I want to take the time to present two versions of every single build, one with the free archetype option and one without. Instead, I'll just ask you to make mental adjustments as you watch or listen on when you think you might want to sacrifice a class feat for an archetype feat, if ever, and when you'd instead rather just stick with class feats. Okay? Here's hoping I don't have to repeat that long explanation with every character build. Maybe I should just create a short around it to link to it every time. Anyway, for this particular character concept, I think the no-brainer archetype feat here for us is going to be the rogue dedication. Without the rogue dedication, my monk would feel a lot less like a ninja and a lot more like just kind of a regular kung fu master. And there's nothing wrong with that. But adding some mechanical subterfuge and sneakiness really helps me flesh out the feel of the concept I'm going for here. And I think that is the best part about the free archetype rule. As for what we actually gain from rogue dedication, we become trained in light armor, which we don't really want. We also get a free skill feat. Nice. I think I'll probably take assurance in stealth. My dexterity isn't amazing, so having a reliably high check on stealth checks when called for makes me feel good. We also become trained in stealth or thievery. Since we've already got stealth, I'll take thievery here. So we can put those thieves' tools we've been carrying around to use now, unlocking doors or disarming traps. We also get training in one more skill. Deception feels fitting for a ninja, I think. Finally, then, we get the Rogue's Surprise Attack class feature, which tells us that on the first round of combat, if we rolled stealth or deception for initiative, creatures who haven't acted yet in combat are flat-footed to us on that first round. Keep in mind that if we are actively trying to avoid notice while in exploration mode, in other words, when we're not in combat, then we use stealth for initiative instead of perception. And for us, that's going to be much better. So I assume that trying to go unnoticed is what we will primarily be doing while in exploration mode. So all in all, taking that rogue dedication definitely helps us feel more ninja-like, but we mostly just got some skill bonuses out of it and a little extra help on the first round of combat if we're being sneaky. Nothing crazy overpowered helping us do like a ton more damage, right? But definitely fun, useful, and flavorful. And speaking of initiative, at level 3, we get another general feat, and I think that I would take Incredible Initiative here. This just gives us a flat +2 circumstance bonus to our initiative rolls all the time. That's fantastic. And especially now that we get a little benefit by going before our enemies on the first round of combat via surprise attack, right? I really want to make sure that we're getting relatively high on the initiative order. Monks get a couple of cool features here at level 3 as well. First up, Incredible Movement just gives us a flat +10 feet of move speed so long as we're not wearing armor. Vroom vroom. This will increase every 4 levels from here. Mystic Strikes makes our unarmed strikes magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance to non-magical attacks. Both of these features feel very familiar and are very welcome. We also get a skill increase at this level, meaning we can either become trained in a new skill or take a skill we have trained proficiency in already to expert proficiency. I'm going to do the latter and bump athletics to expert, I think, especially since we have assurance in athletics. Now that we're level 3, that means we could just make our athletics check a flat 17 without even rolling. And that's so awesome. At level 4, we get another monk class feat, and I seriously want every single one of them. They get so many options and so many of them feel so great. The one I want the most, however, and that's really important to our damage, is Stand Still. Stand Still is awesome. It's kind of like the monk version of an opportunity attack, which, remember, are not just given to every character or even every enemy for free. Stand Still says that if a creature uses a move action while within our reach, we can use our reaction to make a melee strike against them. What's more, if the attack is a critical, the move action that they're making is disrupted. That's kind of fantastic. And this feat provides some really nice synergy with what we're trying to do, but I will wait to get into the details of that during our damage report at the end. We also at level 4, of course, get another skill feat every 2 levels. I think I'm taking Assurance and Acrobatics. I know, I'm boring, so help me mend my ways. Tell me what I should take instead, aside from medicine-focused stuff, because I feel like I already know about that. For the Rogue Archetype feat we get at level 4, we will be taking what's maybe the only just straight up, this unequivocally add some more damage feat from the Rogue Archetype. But it's not a boatload of damage. Yes, I'm talking about Sneak Attacker. This simply gives us access to the Rogue's Sneak Attack class feature, but it's a milder version of it. With Sneak Attack, if you strike an enemy who's flat-footed, then you do extra damage to it so long as you're using a melee weapon or an unarmed strike with the Agile or Finesse trait, so Wolf Stance qualifies, or if it's a ranged attack. Normally for rogues, this is a d6 of extra damage that scales up to multiple d6s as you level, but for us, using the Rogue Archetype, it's only a d4 for now, though it does bump up to a d6 at character level 6, then it just stops. No more scaling. So not a huge boost, but the fact that you can add it to every single strike, not just once on a turn or anything, is pretty cool. Level 5 is a massive level for us. First up, we get our first ability score increase or feat. I mean our first ability boosts, and you get 4 of them, and each one of them boosts the ability that you're bumping by 2, unless it's already at an 18 or higher, in which case it only bumps it by 1. Dang it. And you can't boost any one ability more than once when you get ability boosts. Double dang it. So yeah, I think I'm just going to be boosting the abilities that I've been boosting all along here. First, Strength, of course, taking it to a 19 since it was already an 18. Then Dex, raising it to an 18. Then Constitution and Wisdom, raising them both to 14s. The main reason, by the way, that I'm wanting to go Con and Wiz here, in case it wasn't obvious, is because our saving throws benefit from those scores, right? As well as our hit points, of course, with Constitution. I think there's a very strong argument for bumping Charisma instead of probably Wisdom, however, since there are so many great things you can do with Charisma in combat, like Demoralize or Faint, right? But anyway, I'm going to stick with Constitution and Wisdom here. Next up, at Monk 5, we get the Alertness feature, which increases our Perception proficiency to Expert, another +2. Nice. We then get another ancestry feat. I think I'm probably taking Clever Improviser, which wasn't available to humans until level 5, and it adds a lot of nice utility and jack-of-all-trades flavor for us. This simply gives us the Untrained Improvisation general feat, which essentially lets us add half our level to our proficiency bonus for skill checks that we're not trained in. Better yet, at character level 7, we get to add our full level to those checks. Now, we're still untrained in the skill, so that we don't get the +2 more that being trained would give, let alone the +4 that being expert would, etc., right? But that's still quite nice. Also, with Clever Improviser, we can attempt skill actions that normally require us to be trained even if we're untrained. Remember, every skill has associated untrained actions that anyone can do, and often will have trained actions that you can only attempt if you have trained proficiency or better in that skill, right? For example, anyone can try to sense direction, which is tied to the survival skill, whether they're trained in survival or not. But only those who are trained in survival can try to cover your tracks or track. Well, with Clever Improviser, we can try to do those things too, even though we're not trained in survival, right? It just really opens up more options, mostly utility-focused stuff, but really great regardless. We also get the Expert Strikes feature at this level, which raises our proficiency for unarmed strikes and monk weapons to expert from trained, right? So that's another nice +2 to hit on our strikes. I love it. And finally, yes, we get another skill increase to either become trained in an untrained skill or expert in a trained one. And I think I'm probably going expert in stealth. If we're trying to avoid notice right now, when combat breaks out and we roll our stealth check for initiative, we're getting a +15 to those checks. 4 for our dex mod, 4 for being an expert in stealth, 5 for our character level, and 2 for our incredible initiative feat. That's awesome. But at level 6, this is where I feel like the whole core of the build finally all comes together, as my builds so often seem to do at this level. First up, and most importantly because of our level 6 monk feat, for which we will be taking Wolf Drag. Wolf Drag is an activity. It takes 2 of our 3 actions to use. You have to be in wolf stance to use it, but when you do, you make a single wolf jaw strike. For this one attack, though, that strike has the D12 Fatal trait. For those who don't know, Fatal means that if you get a critical hit, the weapon's damage die increases to, in this case, a D12 instead of a D8, and adds 1 additional damage die on top of everything when you're rolling damage. So in this case, if you crit, you'd roll a D12, add your modifiers, double all of that damage, then add 1 more D12 on top of that. You don't double the extra D12 that Fatal grants you, okay? All right, that's nice, but by itself wouldn't really make Wolf Drag use, I don't think. Where it gets really great is that if you succeed on this Wolf Drag attack, the target is just straight up knocked prone. No saving throw, no athletics check. If you hit, they're prone. That's amazing because it means that you don't have to deal with the multiple attack penalty on an attempt to try and trip them here, right? Normally it would be 1 attack to strike and then a second attack to try and trip, and that trip attack would be made at a -4. Or vice versa, you trip them first and then you try to hit, but at a -4 to hit. This, yes, takes 2 actions, but basically gives us 2 attacks while only making us suffer the multiple attack penalty once. Again, they're knocked prone, and if you're prone, you have a -2 attack penalty to your attack rolls, and your AC is a -2 as well. So knocking an enemy prone like this is really, really good. But it gets even better thanks to how this potentially interacts with your stand still feat, but we'll get to that in a second. We also, at level 6 here, get another skill feat. I think I'm probably going to take Powerful Leap here. It just feels super ninja-like to me, increasing the distance you can jump horizontally and letting you automatically jump 5 feet high vertically, which would mean that if an enemy were 10 feet above you in the air, you could simply jump up and do a really sweet roundhouse to the face without even needing to make an athletics check or anything, and that's just kind of awesome. For our rogue archetype feat at this level, I think I'd take the basic trickery archetype feat, which lets me choose a 1st or 2nd level rogue class feat. And for that, I think I'm taking mobility. It simply lets us move up to half our move speed without triggering any reactions. including opportunity attacks, right? And with our pretty impressive move speed, thanks to being a monk, that's really nice. Finally, don't forget that our sneak attack damage increases to a d6 now, and again, this applies to every agile or finesse attack we make if the enemy is flat-footed. Okay, at level 6, it's time for our first, and for this video, last damage report. I can't believe how long it took me to get here. Let's discuss what I envision combat looking like here and the assumptions that I'll be making. First off, I am just going to assume that you've got your enemy flanked. I know it's not going to happen all the time, but again, I'm exploring best case scenarios, and I think it should be something that you'll be pulling off most of the time, if not all. Second off, I'm not assuming that you have any magic items. I appreciate that getting magic items via crafting and runes is something that a lot of people might just assume at level 6, in Pathfinder anyway. And it seems like most players by this level at most tables should have, say, a striking rune on some magic hand wraps by now, or something. I'm just not quite prepared to start figuring out which magic items I want to add to the character and make assumptions about what you may or may not have. Not yet. I may change that in the future. But for now, we're just going off base stats, and I'll let you adjust accordingly. Also, I've got a small hiccup in my damage calculations that I need to confess to. The damage calculating tool that I've always used is a fantastic little number created by my good friend Ludic Savant. I link to it in every single one of my video descriptions. It's made specifically for D&D 5e. Using it for Pathfinder is pretty easy to do with one small exception. It doesn't account for Pathfinder's crit rules accurately. I'm sure that I could probably create something, or at the very least do the calculations manually, but I just don't really have the time for that right now, unfortunately. What that means is that these numbers I'm about to present are going to be slightly lower than they should, since I'm only assuming that you're going to get a critical hit 5% of the time, when in reality, your crit chance is going to be significantly better than that, especially at lower enemy armor classes. Then again, the numbers might be slightly overestimated since I'm assuming flanked all of the time. Maybe that balances it out a bit. If you know about a great tool for calculating damage in Pathfinder 2e, please let me know. Alright, with all those assumptions out of the way, here's how I envision combat going. Assuming you're in wolf stance and flanking your target, with your first and second actions, you would use wolf drag. If you crit, you're doing a lot more damage, but even on a regular hit, you're still doing 1d8 for your unarmed strike, plus 4 for having them flanked, plus 1d6 for sneak attack, plus 4 for your strength modifier. Assuming you hit, you knock them prone. With your third and final action, you would use Flurry of Blows, which grants you 2 more Wolfjaw attacks. Since they are agile, they would be made at a -4 and a -8 to hit, respectively, which definitely hurts. But what's our plus to hit bonus right now? Without any magic items, we're sitting at a +4 from being expert in unarmed strikes, +4 from our strength, and +6 from our level for a total of +14. Not bad. And since they're flat-footed with a -2 to their AC, I still like our chances. Both attacks, if they land, do the same 1d8 plus 1d6 plus 5. And then, of course, if either of them hit, they have to make a fortitude save or they are stunned 1. Stunned 3 on a crit fail. But here's the best part, and my favorite. On the enemy's turn, they find themselves prone. They need to stand if they want to avoid all of those penalties. But guess what happens when they do? That's right, they're going to take a Wolfjaw to the face, because we have the stand still feet. And it triggers when an enemy takes a move action while within our reach, right? And in Pathfinder 2, standing up is a move action. It's not just when they leave our reach, it's if they take any action that has the move trait tied to it. And since this reaction attack is happening on our enemy's turn, we no longer have a multiple attack penalty for it. I love that synergy. So yes, this means that over the course of one entire round, we'll potentially be making 4 Wolfjaw attacks. 2 with no attack penalty, 1 at a -4, and 1 at a -8. Assuming that all 4 attacks hit, which they probably won't, we'd be doing 4d8 plus 4d6 plus 20 damage each round. Now, numbers scale quite a bit higher in Pathfinder than in D&D, so instead of calculating for 10 enemy armor class at the low end, and 15 for like an average at this level anyway. I'm going with 15 enemy AC for low and 20 enemy AC for average. But the spreadsheet, and if you don't know, check the video description to find spreadsheets where I put all of the numbers and graph the damage for the build over a variety of enemy armor classes, will go from an enemy AC of 15 up to 30, at least for now. And thus, against an enemy with a 15 armor class, we would do on average here 49 damage per round. And against an enemy with a 20 AC, it would be 40 DPR. And alright, compared to other Pathfinder builds that I've done to date at this level, that's better than all of them. Woohoo! New frontrunner! Right, is that any good? I have no idea. It feels pretty good. It's definitely better than any monk that I did for D&D, but that's a pretty low bar considering the state of monks in D&D, and not even remotely an apples to apples comparison. So I guess time will tell as I build more characters how good that really is. And that brings us to final thoughts. Yeah, it feels a little weird to be doing that after only just 6 levels, but honestly, I feel really good about where we got and about like getting a really solid understanding of what's going on, as well as a pretty optimal character build, I think. I'm sure that a lot of you are going to be saying you should not be trying to make 3 strikes on your turn, right? That -8 to hit penalty is so punishing, and it's probably a noob trap to try to attack 3 times on your turn. Instead, you should be feinting or hiding or demoralizing, etc., etc. I get it. I think with this build in particular, because Wolf Drag takes 2 actions, and in order to take advantage of Stunning Strike, you had to use Flurry of Blows, it makes sense, but I'm happy to debate about it in the comments. But yeah, as for where we ended up, completing the core concept along with some nice synergies to help us get out the gate and have a clear path forward for those first few levels feels like a good accomplishment for now. If you build and play this character in this way, I'm sure that by the time you got to level 6, you'd have a better idea than I currently do as to what you wanted to do with level 7 and beyond anyway, right? And yeah, I absolutely love the ninja that we ended up with. Being a monk who can deal some fairly hefty, sustained damage every round, not to mention some decent burst damage thanks to Key Strike, but who also brings a lot of things to the table in the form of survivability and utility, just feels really fun and cool. I've really enjoyed playing this character for the first couple of levels in our Pathfinder game thus far, and am well on my way to being a stealthy, climby martial arts master who has honed their body to a state of near perfection. And I just really want to keep playing them along this path to really flesh out all of that wolfy ninja goodness. So I hope you get to play them one day, but that is the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you know how much I love you, because I do. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for this channel. I hope that you have a fantastic week and a really great day, and that you be good and kind and happy and safe, and that I see you again really soon. But until then, take care. Bye. No, no, no. No. Yes. No. No. Johnny, take a dive with your sister in the rain. Let her talk about the things you can't explain. To touch is to heal, to hurt is to steal. If you wanna kiss the sky, better learn how to kneel on your knees, boy. Oh, Snake Eyes, you're so cool. This means that we get our first skill feat. Well, no, because we already got a skill feat. Acrobat, catfall. She's the way, she turns the tide, she sees the man inside the child, yeah. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright. She moves in mysterious ways. I am reading a book right now, Surrender, by Bono. It's his memoir, the lead singer for U2. Highly recommend, if you're a fan of the band especially. But even if you're not, it's well written, I think. Funny, interesting, good. Check it out. I have been recording this video since I was 11 years old, and I just finished level 1. All right, I'm playing with the lighting today a little bit, mixing it up. Open up those shutters back there to kind of give a little more light in the background, kind of messing with some stuff here. It's a sunny day, so that's gonna make a difference. Anyway, let me know what you think. Especially if you know your way around a recording studio and know some things about lighting. I already said that. Don't say that. Don't even say that. Well, I don't even talk about that. Don't even say that. Unless you're doing don't even talk about that. Right? And this is one kind of cool thing about Pathfinder that I didn't really talk about in my Learning Pathfinder videos. Well, actually, I think I did. So never mind. Brawling focus we could have taken last time, and it lets us gain access to the critical specialization effect of our unarmed strikes, which means that if we were to get a critical hit with our unarmed strikes, our target gets the slowed 1 condition until the end of our next turn. That means that they would have 1 less action on their turn, and that's pretty powerful, though stunned is better, and with Stunning Fist, it just automatically applies when you use Flurry of Blows, which we basically want to be doing all of the time. And the stunned condition replaces the slowed condition, so yeah, never mind. Brawling focus feels like a trap. For just $2 a month, you get a cheat sheet, right? You get access to the cheat sheet. You get access to the... Wow. Come on. You can do it. You get access... Apparently I can't.